Welcome to part two of a Croydon family at war. This time we're focusing on Charles Morris Mackrell, who served as a part of the 250th Light Composite Company landing in Arnhem. He was, as I say, born in 1913. His work record before the war, in 29 onwards, he started his career in driving. Initially, he gained his experience with a number of firms before joining Addiscombe Garden Estates Limited in 1932 as a PSV driver and fitter. He stayed there for a couple of years before freelancing, driving HGV trucks and becoming a domestic chauffeur. His last civilian job before joining the army was with C. Taylor and Sons of Croydon, and he was there in 1938. Once again, he was working as a PSV driver and fitter. There he drove single-deck coaches and buses. On the 12th of March 1940, Charles volunteered at the RASC Territorial Army Centre in Sydenham Road, Croydon. He was posted to Nottingham to the number 9 driver training centre. A couple of vehicles there which are very similar to the ones that he would have been trained on, and he'd been used to big vehicles. He would have found them relatively straightforward. And in April 40, he was transferred to the 55th West Lancs. The 55th remained in the UK in a defensive role after the outbreak of the Second World War. Following the Battle of France, the division regained its 3rd Infantry Brigade and became the 55th West Lancs. It remained within the UK, training for future operations, as well as training replacements for combat units and assigned to anti-invasion duties. In 1942, Mac was posted to the Air Transport Brigade 60. Now, I'm not sure whether he volunteered at that stage. I'm sure he did. Everybody who went airborne pretty well volunteered. He clearly passed any initial assessments, as he qualified to join the 250th Light Composite Company, Royal Army Service Corps, on the 9th of July 1942, and he was assigned E Platoon. At the time, the company was still in the process of reorganising as an airborne unit. It was relatively in its infancy, and the platoon was a general transport platoon. Okay, at that time, the 250th were based at Amesbury Abbey, focused on acquiring and honing the necessary resupply skills. The photo you've got there, it's taken on Salisbury Plain, I believe, and gives an indication of the airborne RASC practicing with the panniers. And we've also got in the picture there the two main types of panniers that they used. So in October 1942, he was on parachute course number 35 at Ringway. The list on the left-hand side is the actual nominal roll from that course. Carried out a short course, 4 descents, and on the 4th of his 8th and 9th of November, he was notified as qualifying. One of the descents would have been from a hot air balloon, and what you see in the other two images are stock images of lads under training in the capsule, which I would have used. Okay, course 35 unfortunately recorded several accidents and 2 fatalities. A Lance Corporal Staley and a gunner Langmaid lost their lives during balloon jumps. Okay, May 73, Mac, as a part of their headquarters 1st Airborne Division column and other RAC companies, departed for North Africa. The company was placed on standby for operations to resupply to Sicily, although this did not subsequently take place. The divisional column was required to provide respread by air as necessary, and consequently supply dumps were established. Mac took part in Operation Slapstick on the 9th of September 1943. The operation was one of those landings during the Allied invasion of Italy in September. It was undertaken by the airborne troops of the 1st Airborne Division. The first echelon of the British Airborne arrived by cruiser and then subsequently by landing craft, and the fast mine layer HMS Aberdale. On the 11th of September, patrols were sent further afield. There were some sharp encounters, so they broke it in. Their role was to take Taranto, and which they did and held. And originally they were going to be relieved by the army, but by the main army group. But they then moved forward. And on the 11th of September, as patrols were sent further afield, there were some sharp encounters with elements of the German 1st Parachute Division. Taranto was actually taken pretty well unopposed. But they could do a little bit of skirmish and fall back. This is the Germans. Most of its strength was attached to 26th Panzer and Hermann Göring Division at Salerno. So it really was just a small force. 11th September, the ports of Bari, Brindisi, and still under Italian control, were then subsequently occupied. There's a photograph of Mack when he was out in Italy. I see from his note he sent home that he had a vowed attempt to hide where he actually was. So, December 23, made his way back to UK. They'd done their job. Okay, the troop ship back to the UK arrived in Liverpool, and then they continued with some further training. In 1944, he was trained to fire the Piat. Photograph above there isn't of Mack. It was simply a stock photo showing an airborne lad using the Piat. Okay. Preparation for Market Garden. In September, they would move to a transit camp at RAF Fairford. The plan will involve the main body of platoon, 28 men, flying aboard a Horsa glider, and along with a jeep section carried in 5 other Horsa gliders, they would support the 1st Air Landing Brigade. On the 15th of September, the headquarters RASC 1st Airborne Division ordered a change of locations for the companies, and number 3 platoon would now be located at Keevil Transit Camp and embarking from there. Okay, with the jeeps and so on staying at the original camp. The list you see in front of you, what they are, is the actual list of soldiers for Market Garden. Max on there, and a number of others. If you research it, you'll see their names pop up. There's a Horsa glider. Okay, Mac, along with 27 of his mates in number 3 parachute platoon, under the command of Captain Bill Gill, flew on Horsa chalk number 479 from Keevil. The Horsa was piloted by men of D Squadron, the glider pilot regiment, with Sterling tug aircraft being from 196 Squadron RAF. It made it safely and accurately to landing zone Z on 17th of September. Not long after landing, Bill Gill agreed with Kramer Bing of number 1 parachute patrol they should swap roles, and that number 3 platoon should follow the 1st Brigade to Arnhem Bridge. The reason for this was straightforward. It was because Bing's platoon had been scattered, and Girls was ready to go. It was there in one place. Getting to the bridge at speed was a priority, so the platoon managed to reach it that day. The ammunition it carried to the bridge in jeeps and trailers was vital to the defensive units. It did cause some confusion, however, because nobody else knew that change had taken place until a little while after. Okay, this is the route into the bridge. So on the right hand side, where this arrow is here, you can see there's a peculiar shaped field which is still there now in the same shape, so it's easily identified. That's the learning zone Z. Once they are set, there were 3 planned routes into Arnhem: the red route, green route, and then the blue route, which was known as Lion. The only successful way in was along the blue route. The initial intention was to get to about here, divide, cross the railway bridge, and then take the Arnhem Bridge from both ends. But of course, it's history now. But the railway bridge had been destroyed, so they all made their way, and Mac was there. He didn't get a free ride; he had to walk the 8 miles in. Here's an image of the of the landing space. Most people, in fact, it was remarked how accurate it was. As you can see from the left there, a few of them made it, overran and went into the woods, but nearly all the aircraft landed safely on the day. Okay, on arrival at the bridge, they adopted a defensive position. This is a post the battle photograph here. And they were in the west perimeter, basically where the arrow is. There is a pocket. There's a pocket here of British defence around the bridge. Some were the other side of the bridge, but there's a pocket here. Okay, so they adopted it on the northwest of perimeter fence, facing Arnhem Prison. Well, actually, it's a judicial system. That was the main judicial building, and behind it isn't Arnhem Prison as it was recorded on the war diary, but actually it was a holding centre, and so Mac and his team were here. Okay, the building secure. The building secure was behind the waterworks offices and covered the perimeter from northwest through to the northeast. The men were spread through the building. The platoon was to hold this position for 4 days until the morning of the 21st. Captain Bill Gill said, "We held our position constantly until, with the building we were occupying on fire and under heavier German attack, we were ordered to disperse in parties of 10 men. I led the first party of 10 to leave and was attempting to reach the rest of the division, an impossible task as we were taken prisoner on the Thursday. Lieutenant Daniels was to lead the next party with Sergeant Brooks, Hoy or Staples leading the remainder. That was the last I heard of them. It is possible that we were holding the last position in action." They weren't actually. There were still pockets even after that date that were holding out here. The building on the left is the building he's talking about. Prior to that, they were in a building adjacent to it, which was on fire so badly that they had to evacuate and move into that building. Okay, Mack was taken prisoner on the 21st of September and sent to Stalag 12A at Limburg in Germany. There he was issued with a POW number, and this was a transit camp and not a POW camp. And there's some photographs, again, stock images or MOD images. The image on the right-hand side with the shrapnel in it, that's what they call Hellfire Corner, not an enormous distance from where Mack was. So you can see just by looking at that small snap that that was a machine gun post there, and clearly quite a busy one. And there's some more photographs there. Okay, after being processed at Stalag 12A, Mack, along with other captured survivors of Arnhem, endured a 5-day march to the next camp, which was Stalag 4B. This was one of the largest POW camps in Germany during the Second World War. After processing at 4B, Mack would have then had to endure another forced march to Stalag 4D. Okay. 4D was a processing centre for distributing POWs to many work camps under its jurisdictions. These could be factories, mines, railway yards, or even farms of up to 160 kilometres away. From Mack's return interview, it seems that he worked as a builder's labourer somewhere in Bitterfield. Some of these fellas had to go into Dresden after the bombings, and they weren't, as you can imagine, particularly popular. Mack reported afterwards in his debrief that the treatment of the camps was fairly good, all things considered. His camp was liberated by the Americans on the 14th of April 1945. So what happened when he came back? He did his repatriation interview. 25th of April he was home, and then he was transferred to the 5th Chilwell Motor MT Group, ending his service in December 1945 with an exemplary record. And there's a photograph there. Is Mack at the back, and there's his son Morris, a bit more grown up now, and his wife. At happier times. Okay, thank you for watching this video. Next week we'll be talking about another individual who joined the Wrens. Thank you very much indeed. Thank you.